January 9th, 2025 marks 7 years on BookTube, and I thought, you know, I've got to do something phenomenal to mark that anniversary. Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Bree and this is For Pausing a Book. It has been 7 years since I hit record on my phone, my very old iPhone, and posted my first TBR. My channel itself was about 6 months older than that. I started out with bullet journals and in the planning community, but quickly moved over to books once I realized that BookTube was even a thing that existed. So I like to call January 9th my BookTube birthday, and you guys are going to help me celebrate it this year. I wanted to do something extra, something special for this, and I thought since it's January, it's the beginning of the year, we're all still talking about Goodreads. What if I read a book that was a winner of the Goodreads Choice Awards for every year that I've been on BookTube? I might regret this. I don't know what books I'm gonna pick. We're gonna pick them together right now. All right, so we are at the Goodreads Choice Awards page. I'm going to start with 2018. That was the year that I created my channel, and I was very much a contemporary romance reader at that point. But let's look at the winners of everything and see which books I have read, which ones I want to read. So I have read quite a few of these so far. I have not read the fiction one, but that is like book 3 in a series. Stephen King won 2 awards. Why am I not surprised? I did read the historical fiction. That's probably not going to be a trend you continue to see. I read the fantasy. That's exciting. Although I'm not sure I would call Circe a fantasy story. I don't know. Like I have a weird feelings about like mythological retellings being in fantasy. They need their own category, honestly. What is this? The best of the best? I don't recognize that. Like that's not a. This is a tangent, but. Reader's favorite best of the best. Why don't we still have this category? All the Light We Cannot See, A Court of Mist and Fury, The Help, The Nightingale, The Martian, Gone Girl, The Ocean at the End of the Lane, Catching Fire, The Fault in Our Stars, 11/22/63, Queen of Shadows, A Dance with Dragons, Little Fires Everywhere, Eleanor and Park, Ends with Us, Red Rising. This is like such a weird collection of books. I mean, I guess I can kind of see why they didn't choose that one, or why they don't have that category anymore, because it's such a weird one. All right, I read the romance one, obviously. Read the sci-fi one. Interesting that V.E. Schwab was in sci-fi. And I mean, I guess that series is sci-fi. Elevation by Stephen King is the horror. And then there's so many nonfiction ones. There's humor, and then nonfiction, memoir and autobiography, history and biography, science and technology, food and cookbooks, and then graphic novels, poetry, and then we get down to the YA. So we have debut, young adult fiction, young adult fantasy, middle grade and children's, and then picture books. I miss that category. I don't read picture books or anything like that, but I understand the importance of it, and I'm really sad that they took that away, and then later on, middle grade. We just don't care about kids reading anymore, I guess. So looking at all these, I have read quite a few of them. I don't necessarily want to read any of the YA books based on like what is on my one to read. Do we read Elevation? Listen, I've only read a couple of Stephen King's, and I feel like he's such a staple in the book community. We gotta do it, right? Plus this one's short. All right, so 2018, we're going to read the horror winner. Let's go on to 2019. The Testaments by Margaret Atwood is like the sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. I'm not sure I want to read that with like, here's the thing, I am filming this on November 3rd, 2024, which means that we are right around the election. I don't know that I want to do that to myself. Read The Silent Patient, loved it. Historical fiction I've read the fantasy, read the romance, read the sci-fi. I don't want to read another Stephen King. Definitely not reading Rachel Hollis. Jonathan Van Ness, that can be fun. The Five, it's the like true crime story of stalking Jack the Ripper. Will my cat eat my eyeballs? All right. Cookbooks, graphic novels, that would also be a fun one. Because I never actually read Pumpkinheads. Read The Wicked King. I'm not really interested in YA contemporary. Maybe we choose a nonfiction. I don't read a lot of nonfiction, but this might be an interesting one. I've heard really good things about this. In what may be the most overdue book of the past 100 years, historian Hallie Rubenhold steals back the narrative of Jack the Ripper, tells the stories that really matter, reviews the lives of those murdered rather than the story of the killer, reveals the inaccuracy and prejudice prejudices, there we go, that have been repeated over the years. Okay, that actually sounds really good. I think we're gonna go with that one. Look at me reading nonfiction. All right, 2020. I'll be interested to see if I've read more as the years go on or fewer, because I've obviously read, like I've read more books every year, so I wonder. Midnight Library. I read that one. I read The Guest List. It's interesting that Lucy Foley won the mystery and thriller. The Vanishing Half, I read that one. I read The Crescent City. I read From Blood and Ash. I have not read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and that is on my physical TBR. This is a big book. I DNF'd Mexican Gothic. Read Heartstopper. Read Such a Fun Age. I've read Clapping You Land. I've read The Queen of Nothing. Oh god, am I gonna read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars? I'm regretting my life choices. But that's like the only one there is. If I don't read, unless I want to read another nonfiction. Okay. Listen, like this is a favorite. Everybody loves it. I mean, obviously, it's one of Goodreads Choice Awards. It's on my physical TBR. A lot of people I know love it. Locking it in. Moving to 2021. Sally Rooney. Did not read that one. I've not read The Last Thing He Told Me, although I don't necessarily really want to read that one anymore. Read Malibu Rising. Court of Silver Flames is too far in a series that I don't want to read. Oh look, it's the start of the Emily Henry domination of romance. Read Project Hail Mary. Ooh, The Final Girl Support Group. I haven't read that one. That's one of the few Grady Hendrix I don't own, but also I haven't read. Laura Olympus getting the win there. Read The Spanish Love Deception. I haven't read Rule of Wolves, but that's not where I'm at in this series. I think I want to read The Final Girl Support Group. I mean, I know it'll make it 2 horror books in this project, but of this, it's the one I'm probably the most interested in. Because I'm not really interested in The Last Thing He Told Me anymore. I've heard like some just mixed things about it. Also the fact that it's not necessarily a thriller or a mystery, it's more of literary fiction. And I don't want to read Sally Rooney. Listen, I know people love her, but it's not my cup of tea. I think I'm gonna read Grady Hendrix, because I've read a lot of his books. 2022. All right, here we go. I'm not gonna read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I actually don't want to read that one anymore. Don't let Goodreads fool you. Oh, House of Sky and Breath. I should read that one because I have to read it anyways, because I imagine that House of Flame and Shadow will be on the Goodreads Choice Awards for this year. I should be smart, right? But I also want to read Sea of Tranquility, although I feel like it's gonna be a little bit too slow, like too slice of life for me. I do want to read I'm Glad My Mom Died. Man, there's so many good ones in this one. Amanda Gorman's poetry collection is in this. I think I'm just gonna be smart and read House of Sky and Breath. I mean, it may not be smart because that's now 2 massive tomes on my on my TBR, but I have to read this one anyways before the Goodreads Choice Awards for 2024. Finally at 2023. We will still pick a 2024 one. Obviously they just haven't come out yet, so that'll be like the last one that I read, and I won't read the Romantasy one because I'm already doing that. I've read Yellowface. I don't want to read Wayward. I do want to read The Housemaid's Secret. I don't want to read Emily Henry. I've read Hellbent. I've read In the Lives of Puppets. I don't want to read another Stephen King. I don't want to read Divine Rivals. I do want to read Check and Mate. Maybe we do. Let's choose Check and Mate because I haven't done a young adult one. So let's do that. I was thinking, like, my brain was like, oh, I should do Housemaid's Secret, but let's do Check and Mate because that'll at least give us a YA book. And then obviously, because it's still November, I have not seen the 2024 ones. So when those come out, I will come back to you with the final book of my TBR. But for now, here's what we have. Good morning. I apologize for the phone clip. I've talked about this in a couple of vlogs, but I am trying to figure out how to film with my camera in my car because I film a lot in my car, but every single tripod that I have gotten for my camera just doesn't work in my car, and so I'm trying to figure it all out. So until then, you're getting phone clips. Honestly, the worst part about a phone is the audio, and so maybe I just try to find a better mic. It's an experimentation. 2025 is all about experimenting. But I wanted to touch base with you because I am 52% of the way through Elevation by Stephen King. I don't know how I feel about this book. I do appreciate that we are having a lot of political commentary, and we talk about this book like this was published in 2018, which means it was definitely being written and like it was thought about in 2016, 2017, which would have been, you know, Trump's first presidency. And as we are coming into the second never mind. We're not gonna talk about that. Stephen King is very loud about his criticisms of Donald Trump and his lack of support. We'll just put it that way. It's early in the morning and I can't think of the word that I want to say, but this is very apparent, right? So this is about a man who I don't understand like the main concept of this book, but essentially this man is losing a lot of weight, but his mass is staying the same. And it's like no matter if he is like holding on to 20-pound weights or not, he still weighs the same. It's very weird. I don't understand like the actual plot of this book or the reason we are having a story. However, the social commentary that we are having around this book is very fascinating. Our main characters and neighbors are a lesbian couple, and they live in a very small kind of conservative town. It specifically talks about how like they voted very red. It was very obvious without being direct that he has been talking about Trump. He is talking about Trump. I think he does in one instance say that it's very like he mentions something being very Trumpian. I'm kind of vibing with the anger of this book. This is definitely a book that Stephen King wrote angry at the world, at the country. And so like I'm very much vibing with that part. Do I know or care what this actual like idea of like this guy like losing, I don't know how it's like horror. It's feeling more contemporary in nature because it's just like a social commentary book. But as far as like the horror aspect of it, I'll be curious to see what happens in the second half of the book. But I was reading it yesterday while I was baking cookies. It is the day before Christmas Eve, and so I was doing a lot of baking. And yeah, I was just kind of reading it, but then I got to the 50% mark and I was like, oh, I should probably do a vlog clip. And it was kind of getting dark, so I was like, I'll just put it away. I'll read something else for now and do it in the morning. And that's where we are here. I will probably finish it up at work. I literally have like an hour and a half left of the audiobook. I really like the audiobook. Stephen King narrates it himself. So yeah, this is a good start. This is a good like hit to day one, I guess. I mean, like, you know, year one, interestingly enough. Obviously in 2018, I was not reading horror. Definitely not. So this is a weird pick for 2018, but also it might be like a good pick in the sense that I may have missed out on some good horror from 2018. Anyways, we're off to a good start. I realized about halfway through filming this vlog that I wanted to do these little reflections about every year that I've been on BookTube. So let's go back and let's start at the beginning. Let's start at 2018. So I posted my first video January 9th of 2018. I was in my previous marriage at the time, and I had started a bullet journal channel previously. I think I started that one in like July of 2017. 2017 was the worst year of my life. Personally, I had a lot of personal things happen, and that kind of like spilled into 2018, but I wanted a creative outlet. I had a very scientific job at the time, and it allowed me for zero creativity, and I wanted something to be able to come home and like have this thing that was my own. And so I had started reading. I started reading this now very problematic series called The Gender Game by Bella Forrest. I listened to them on audio the fall of 2017. I finished it in early 2018. It was like, oh, I think I saw it on a Facebook ad. It's very problematic because it's like very gender binary. Like there's a matriarchal society and a patriarchal society and they're at war with each other. But there was like no discussion of non-binary people. There was no discussion of it's very stereotypical to gender and gender roles and things like that. Yeah, problematic AF. But I can't help but have a little bit of fondness for it because that is what restarted my love of reading. I binged this like 6 or 7 book series very, very quickly on audio, and Rebecca Soler is the narrator, and now she's like one of my favorite YA narrators, and so she's like I still have a fondness for her voice and things like that, just because of that's how like my channel started. That's how everything started, and that's now why I have this and I have this channel. My first initial videos were like sitting at my desk, and I would like put my little library stack of books that I had gotten. Like there was going to be my TBR because I didn't like own a lot of physical books at the time. We lived in a very small apartment and we were on a very low income, so I couldn't
get books. I couldn't purchase books the way that I can now, and so I would use the library when I could. Salt Lake has a terrible library. I had a very old Kindle, and then I would like go to Goodwill and thrift stores and things like that, and just find books. So it wasn't like I was reading the books that everybody else was, but I wanted to get started. I wanted to read, and I wanted to share. You know, nobody else in my real life read, and so it was exciting for me, I guess. So anyways, that's how things started. I started doing readathons. I started doing vlogs. I traveled a lot for work when I was, you know, early 2018. I was traveling like almost every other week, and so I tried to like incorporate, you know, traveling and reading. I went to Portland. I went to Buffalo, New York in the middle of January during, not Buzzwordathon. What was the, I can't remember. Winter Bibliothon? I can't remember. Anyways, it was a very old like OG when the readathons were like 1 week and you had 7 days and you were trying to read 7 books in 7 days. I did contemporary-a-thon, and like I started like, you know, just dabbling in these little things that like now I know are contemporary romance, but like back then I was like, it's a contemporary book, but like no, it was romance. It was Sierra Simone. It was smut. Looking back, I'm a very different person, obviously, than who I was in 2018. You know, emotionally, you know, I am very, very different. I am in a much happier place. I am in a much more stable place. And yeah, I like, you know, I look back on that time, you know, mentally I was very depressed and very stressed out. I had a lot of anxiety back then. Still do, but like, you know, we're treating it now because, you know, we can go to therapy. But anyways, yeah, so 2018, I moved from Utah to Colorado, and then left my marriage, moved back to Utah. So yeah, it was a time for me personally. While I trauma block a lot of that on a personal scale out, I think like on a BookTube scale, it is, I look back on it with a little bit of fondness just because of, you know, where I came from and where I am now. It is very different. So anyways, gonna go down memory lane a little bit, and here we are. Let's get back to finishing up Elevation, and then I'm gonna check in every time when I am like talking about that year's book. I'm gonna talk about that year on BookTube as well. All right, I finished Elevation by Stephen King, and okay, I would be so pissed if in 2018 I was a big horror reader and this won horror, because this is not horror in the slightest. It's contemporary fiction. It's literary fiction with like a slight bit of magical realism, but it's not horror. And like, it's only horror because it's Stephen King? That doesn't make any sense. Goodreads, do better. I think as a book, it's fine. I gave it 3 stars. It's not horror though. Listen, the ending was absolutely bonkers. It's this whole like idea that he is like the same mass, but doesn't weigh anything. He's basically like, you know, the way you are on the moon, to the point where like he has to be like strapped into a chair, otherwise he's just gonna float. Hence Elevation. But like, that's not horrifying in the sense of like what horror is like. Rude. Anyways, it's not horrifying. It's not horror. It's social commentary. It's great social commentary. I think the idea of this, like, you know, unexpected friendships, unexpected you know, help and things like that, and like learning who you are as a person. But all of those things are like themes you would see in literary fiction, not in horror. Give me 3 stars. We're gonna move on to 2019. I am 60-ish% of the way through the 5, and I had high hopes for this book. I don't know why I had high hopes for it, but I had like some people that had read it that, like, you know, there's a lot of good ratings on here. This is bad. As somebody who does not read a lot of nonfiction, I will say it is so boring. It reads like a textbook or like somebody doing a master's thesis. It's very cut and dry. It's very much, here are the facts, here is this, this is this, you know, it's like, it's just like there's not a story to it. She's not
creating a narrative, which I think is important when you're talking about people. Right? I get the importance of this book. I get the importance of wanting to center the victims instead of the serial killer, because history tends to like remind you of the serial killers. They remind you of the infamous person rather than the people that person killed or harmed or whatever. I get that that's important. However, I don't think that this book is doing that justice. First off, like I said, it's boring. It's so dry. So dry. But then on top of that, there is like, she is assuming a lot of things. It's very weird how like set on trying to prove her hypothesis that these women were not prostitutes or sex workers. Like, she's so set on proving that point that she's ignoring actual facts and like making very big leaps and assumptions. And it's like, logic will say da 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 da. Likely this is da 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 da. If you were just reading that information, you wouldn't come to that conclusion. She's leading you to that conclusion. And if this is going to be nonfiction, you don't get to do that unless you say, in my opinion, I believe that this is this, X, Y, and Z. She's stating it as fact. And that doesn't work. Okay? Like, I've written a lot of papers in my day. Like, you can't do that unless you are citing a primary source. You don't get to assume things. But yeah, anyways, so that's weird. And then like on top of that, it's weird that she's trying to focus on that so much. It's weird that she is trying to like prove that they weren't sex workers, they weren't prostitutes. Like, okay, who cares? It feels, and I don't know if this is because it's like it is historically accurate. I am not familiar with Jack the Ripper and the history and the lore behind it. It's not a period of history that I am particularly interested in and or well versed in. So like, I don't know, maybe like they were trying, like maybe that is the stated opinion that because they were sex workers, it doesn't matter as much. And so then her trying to prove that they're not would then like make their deaths worth more. But that doesn't make sense, right? Like, why does their occupation and or their history make their death any less important? I don't know, it's just like she's trying so hard to prove that they weren't sex workers to justify that their deaths meant something. But like, their deaths should mean something anyways, because they were human beings, they were women, regardless of what they chose to do for an occupation. There is like, the amount of discussion of alcohol in this book is ridiculous. And I know that it was like, around the prohibition movement and stuff like that. And so people had a very negative connotation to alcohol, but it was like, she was drunk, so therefore like she didn't have good judgment or whatever. And then like there's a guy, one of the men, I don't know how it was nominated, let alone how it won. Okay, like, how did this win? I should have checked the vote differential and like what else was in that category, because maybe it's just like there just wasn't a competition. So anyways, it's not working for me in the slightest, and I just want to be done. I just want this book to be done.
Hello, I'm back. It's me again. Let's talk 2019. 2019 is a year that I don't think I remember a lot of, because I feel like I thought I knew what I was doing, but obviously looking back, you're like, you sweet summer child. But I feel like I was very stagnant in 2019, and I didn't necessarily try anything new. I didn't try anything different. I did hit 1K. That was the year that I hit 1K on BookTube, and it's also the year I got to go to BookCon, the very last BookCon that ever existed. So that was exciting, but it's like a year as far as my content is concerned that I don't remember doing much. I went to, like I said, I went to book BookCon, I had a book club with a couple of friends of mine. It started out as like a Facebook group. We tried to do little readathons around it, but it wasn't like, I don't know, it was just nothing that I really tried. I didn't try very hard, and I don't know if it was because that was like when my actual real job was crazy and stressful, and it just like took up all of my time. I don't know. I truly do not know. We were starting to get more involved with the dogs, and so that may have taken up some of my time and effort and energy, but I just like, I'm trying to like think back on like, what interesting things happened in 2019, and I truly don't know. I was trying to do like weekly vlogs, and those were just like so boring. Everything from that time period is privated on my channel right now. It was a lot of like, you know, in my car type of vlogs, because I was working a lot, listening to a lot of audiobooks. I was, you know, reading a lot of romance, a lot of like just traditionally published contemporary romance. I do remember, I think this was the year that I started working with a couple of indie authors, a couple of self-pub authors, and yeah, it had to have been, because I actually got to meet one of those authors. She took the entire team that like was on her, you know, her street team essentially that was at BookCon. We went out to dinner in New York City. That was cool. That was fun and exciting. Yeah, I think there was a couple of authors that I started working with, and then like it was the year that like I started getting on NetGalley and things like that. I thought I had like, you know, made it because I was getting books on NetGalley. But anyway, it's fun to like look back and see like, oh, you know, yeah, that is time. It was a time. It was a time for sure. So yeah, maybe this idea of trying to talk about my previous years is boring. I don't know, maybe this was just a boring year. I'm back. I finished the 5. I don't have a lot to talk about. I was actually farther along than 60% when I talked to you last. I don't have much to say other than what I already talked about. I gave it 2 stars. The amount of speculation and the amount of assumptions that this author goes to should classify this book as historical fiction, not true crime, not nonfiction. It's kind of an abomination and an insult to factual research and historical accuracy. I started looking into some of the reviews of this book, and I didn't notice this. I didn't know this about this source, but one of the primary sources that she is using is a widely discredited paper that was published in 1885. And so if that is like her primary source, that's what she's using to back a lot of this information up, then how credible are the rest of her sources? Like, if that's what she's basing her entire premise on, the entire thing. So, yeah, I should give it 1 star, honestly, but I'm gonna give it 2 because I understand, like, the premise of this book. Fantastic. Love it. It's very much, like, trying to build on the, like, the Say My Name movement and the idea that, you know, victims of these mass murders should be the ones that we are focusing on. When you think about the murders and the you know, shootings and stuff that happen in the news, we try to avoid saying the killer's name, the shooter's name, because we don't want them to have the notoriety. We want to focus on the victims. And I get that. That makes a lot of sense. It makes total sense. But, like, this just felt like a disservice to that idea, that thought process. I told myself I wasn't going to DNF books for this project, but guess what? I am. It's 2025, and that's what we're gonna do. I can't be bothered. I am, like, maybe 70 pages into this book, and I'm DNFing it. This is not a free book. We should have known that, okay? It's gonna go off of my TBR. For being as big as it is, has 0 setup, okay? We jumped right into an action, and I don't know who the characters are yet. We jumped into this, like, big, huge emotional scene, and I don't care yet because I don't know who you are. And I'm sure that, like, we're gonna slow down, we're gonna get to know things, but, like, I don't care. I don't want, like, you have to set things up. And I don't care. So that was a really, really quick introduction and DNF. I tried this physically and on audio, so it's not one or the other. It's very much a me thing. I understand why people love this book. I understand that there is a huge audience for it. Not for me. On to bigger and better things. Remember, 2025 is the year that we are DNFing things regardless of the project. So let's move on. I do, however, want to talk about 2020 because that was a weird year. It was a weird year for everybody, and I think it's a year that I look back on wishing that my mental health was a lot better, because I think I could have really grown on the channel a lot faster than I am. A lot of it being that I didn't do anything on TikTok, and if I would have, I probably would have been in a much different place. I scrolled a lot of TikTok in 2020, but I didn't actually do anything with it. I was working a really stressful job, and they were very like vague on whether or not we would still have a job. They were trying to make things work, and it ended up being fine. It is the year that I ended up quitting that job to go and work for my current position, because in the first half of the year we weren't doing a lot, because obviously I was working as an inspector for a consulting company, and restaurants A, didn't have the funds to be able to pay us, and B, didn't want us in the restaurants, but when we didn't really know what was going on with COVID. So yeah, so the first half of the year we didn't do a whole lot, but I also didn't have like a ton of desire to make creative content. I did want to vlog, but my vlogs were very much stream of consciousness. It was very much like, I just need to talk to you about what is going on in my life. And so then we just it was kind of the birth of weekly reading vlogs, week in my life kind of vlogs, which obviously don't happen that much anymore, just because that's just not, A, not interesting, but B, not what is trending on YouTube right now. And I think it's interesting how everything, trends change so much, and that was 2020. There was a lot of people just doing week in the life vlogs because it was a way to interact with other people and to connect with other people while we were social distancing. I read a lot of good books that year. I read a lot of favorites. I read My Dark Vanessa was a standout that I remember reading very early into COVID. Doyle was a puppy in early 2020 because he was born in December of 2019. And so March and April, those few months were when I was he had had his shots. And so then, because we couldn't take him to puppy school because that wasn't a thing we were doing, I took him on so many walks, and I would listen to audiobooks as I took him to the park, because we had a park about a quarter of a mile down the road. And so I would take him to the park, and I would, walk with him for hours. We would do one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And I listened to audiobooks, and I remember specifically, vividly, still listening to My Dark Vanessa while walking around the park. That was a very, it was weird. That was a really dark book for a really depressing time of my time of year. And then the second half of the year, my job was oh, by the way, because we didn't do a whole lot in the first half of the year, we still have to make it up to the investors, so you're going to do all of the work in 6 months. And that's why I quit, because I put 1,500 miles on my car in 7 days, which is a lot of miles. I drove it was 3 states in 7 days. It was insane. So anyways, I quit very shortly after that. I remember actually doing my phone interview for my current job while sitting in the hotel parking lot of that trip. So yeah, it was a really interesting year. It was also the last year that I did NaNoWriMo, which is weird. It's after that I decided that I don't think I want to write a book. I like reading books. I don't like writing books. So yeah, 2020 was a weird year. It was a very weird year for a lot of people, but it was also an interesting year for my channel. It was still Coffee Books and Bullet Journals back then. I hadn't changed my name yet, because I changed it in 2021, so we'll talk about that after we talk about the next book. So anyway, that's a great segue.
Hello, hi. I had high expectations for this book because I have really enjoyed a lot of books from Grady Hendrix. But I am 30% into the Final Girl support group, and I would like to know what the hype is. I would like to know why people love this book. I'm bored. I don't know what's going on. I feel like there are times where I'm like, this is a fever dream. This is really interesting. And then we just go back to whatever we are doing. I don't know. It's just I have not connected to a single character in this book. If someone dies, I wouldn't be able to tell you who it was. I wouldn't be able to tell you why it mattered. It's just not, it's not interesting right now, and that's a bummer. But I want to push through because I feel like a lot of people said the same thing about How to Sell a Haunted House, and they felt like it wasn't a book that they really connected to until you hit Pizza Chinese. And I feel like Horror Store was the same way. There's a point in those books where something switches and you all of a sudden are like so invested you're on the edge of your seat. And I feel like that has happened for me for both How to Sell a Haunted House and Horror Store, but it did not happen for me with My Best Friend's Exorcism. I didn't like that book. It was boring. The switch never flipped for me. So I'm hoping that something's gonna happen at some point, but I don't know. And at this point, I don't care. We're like on the run at this point, and we're, you know, trying to, we have a character that's got dementia or something and like just completely out of it, and I just don't know, and I don't care. And honestly, this video is not going well right now and I am bummed. So we're going to continue reading it, but I just thought I would come on here and tell you my thoughts, which are that I have no thoughts, and I wish I did. I wish I had more interesting things to tell you, but I don't.
I finished The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, and I'm giving it 3 stars. It's fine. It's fine. It didn't ever get to that point like Pizza Chinese does, or like Horror Store did. Like, there were parts of it that were interesting. Also, there is a large portion of the book that takes place in American Fork, Utah, which, by the way, is about 5 minutes from where I work. And that's where like the deadliest of, you know, that the original crime happened. It is quite funny because she says something like, we're in American Fork. I just opened my door. And you're like, yeah, that's a very Utah thing. It's very Utah. So I understood that, but I also don't think that something this crazy would have happened. I was thinking that. I was like, I don't think anything this crazy would ever happen in Utah, but there is that one show / book, and I can't think of who, like, I can't remember what it's called. God, why can't I think of it? Andrew Garfield. Is it this? Whatever this is. That happened also in American Fork. So maybe this is like playing off of that? Maybe? I don't know. Yeah, 3 stars. Part of it was like, a lot of it was just boring. And I'm bummed. 2021 though, let's talk about 2021. In 2021 is the year that the Avengers Initiative Reading Challenge started on my channel. If you are an OG watcher, you will know what that is. It was a year-long challenge. Every month we like created new bingo boards, and we made new new prompts, and you had to you could use one book for like a whole bingo board, how many ever it fit, but you couldn't like cross over. But then once you finished that bingo board, you got a bonus. It was a whole thing. Okay, it was a massive reading challenge that I did with a bunch of friends, and it was so much fun. But 2021 was definitely when it started, and it was crazy, and we were like, oh, there's gonna be like, you know, us 5 and then maybe 5 more people that do it with us. And I think we ended up having like over 100 people in the Discord, which like in today's numbers is small, but like for then it was pretty good. It just got a little bit out of hand and a little bit crazy, and we burned ourselves out way too fast. But 2021 was a good year for that. And then also I did a channel change. That's where 4 Paws in a Book started. I think, was it 20? Yeah, it was 2021, because it happened. So we lost Zephyr, April of 2021. Zephyr is Doyle's mom. We lost her to cancer, and then I took a hiatus, for 6 weeks or so, something like that, because I had no desire to be creative or anything like that. And then when I came back at basically as 4 Paws in a Book. And I lost a bunch of subscribers. I don't know why, but a lot of people left after that, and that was not fun. But we gained it all back. We are, we're doing fine now. But yeah, that was 2021.
Good morning. I have finished part 1 of House of Sky and Breath. I do not remember a lot of what happened in the first book, and I was not about to reread it. So I went in and watched a couple of those like spoiler recaps that a couple of the like big romantasy booktubers had put out before this one was published. So I watched Honest Fiction's review, which I think was amazingly done. And then I also watched Becca from Becca in the Books, who had done like so much stuff around Crescent City around the second book coming out. So I definitely utilized that. Do I still know what's going on? No.
This book is fine. It's fine. There's nothing terrible about it, but I don't know how to put this. So I appreciate the fact that Sarah J. Maas is probably the godmother of romantasy, right? She is the one that not necessarily like started it, because obviously there have been other romantasy authors prior to ACOTAR getting big. However, she is the one that kind of put it on the map. Like, whatever you feel about Sarah J. Maas, you have to credit her for that. That she is the one that made romantasy what it is today. However, that being said, she is not above critique or criticism or constructive feedback. And my constructive feedback would be that it is too goddamn long, and the main characters, specifically Hunt, has the character dynamics of a wet piece of paper. It's not anything groundbreaking. There is nothing that is like making me want these two people together. There's nothing that is making me believe that they would burn the world down for each other. And they're just kind of like jealous, like little children. And it's fine. But there are so many more good books out there, good romantasy books. And I feel like because Sarah J. Maas tends to be the first thing you think of when you think of romantasy, right? When someone who does not read a lot of romantasy comes out and says that, like, you know, when you say like, oh, you read romantasy, so you've read ACOTAR, you've read Sarah J. Maas, like that's the first thing people think of. And this, I don't think it's a good representation of what the genre is. It's just not. And it's so sad because Flame and Shadow will likely win the romantasy category for this. And it's just like, it's fine. Okay? You know my critiques of Fourth Wing. You know that I didn't love that book, but that book is better than this. Like, it has more structure. It has more tension, more, listen, it's way too early in the morning, and I accidentally brought the wrong protein shake today, so this is one that doesn't have caffeine in it. So you're getting, like, just unfiltered thoughts this morning. That's what I have to say about it. It's fine. The book is fine. I have to go to work, but I just thought I would touch base with you. There are 3 parts to this book, so I figured I would stop and talk at the end of each part.
Hello, I told you I would come back and talk to you when I got to part 3, and I did. I finished part 2, and I don't know that I have anything else to say about this book. This book is a book that exists, and I am not necessarily looking forward to finishing the series, because even the people that loved this book hated book 3. I think objectively this book is doing fine. Like, it's checking the boxes off that it needs to. The smut is hot, I guess, but like it's not blowing my mind. This is fine. There are so many better romantasy books out there. I don't know why this one has such a stronghold. I don't understand it. Because it's not even saying anything really, like, when you're talking about the politics in the larger world, it's not even doing anything great with that either, and also the romance feels shallow. But at the same time, I'm not like hating this book. It's not doing anything offensive. It's not doing anything that I hate. It's just like taking a lot of my time, and no book needs to be 800 pages long. The fact that I have to read another one of these is just making me die a little inside. So yeah, I'm gonna try to finish this. I think I've got like 3.5 hours left at my listening speed, so we're gonna knock it out today. And we're going to move on. It's fine. I'm fine. Here's the thing. And I was talking to a friend at work about this. So it's very well known that I read a lot at work. I think that was like in my, like, we do these like intro emails, like whoever your direct supervisor is will send out an email being like, you know, this person is joining our team, blah, 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 and here's a fun fact about them. And like my fun fact was that like by the time I was hired in November of the 2020, they were like, you know, Bree's already read 150 books in the year. And so it just became like well known that I read a lot at work. You know, I listen to audiobooks while I'm working and that stuff. And so I was talking to a coworker about it, and she was like, yeah, I'm trying to, she also reads, but like, she's like, I'm trying to get into romantasy. I feel like the concept of it makes sense. I feel like I would like it. But I can't get through ACOTAR. It is like making me die a little bit inside every time I open it up. And she's like, so maybe it's not the genre for me. And I'm like, you cannot diss a whole genre because of ACOTAR and because of Sarah Janet. There's so much better. And maybe I need to do a video like that where it's like the 20 books that are better than Sarah J. Maas, because it's making me mad at this point that this has become the pinnacle of romantasy, the cornerstone, the foundation of romantasy, when we have far surpassed it. So anyways, that's my little rant. I'm gonna get off my soapbox now.
I was realizing that almost all of my clips were either in my car or in front of my bookshelves or my desks, and I needed a new exciting place. So here we are. I finished House of Sky and Breath. I gave this 2.5 stars. I didn't like it. This is so overwritten. It's so long. This does not need to be this big. Why is it this big? I was so bored. Why is this book so popular? Why is it that this book is like supposed to be the crown jewel of romantasy when honestly it's not even a romantasy? It's not, okay? It's an urban fantasy that has a romantic subplot to it, but it's not a romantasy. And this does not deserve to win the Goodreads Choice Awards. And the thing is that it's going to win the Goodreads Choice Awards for romantasy in 2024. And if we would have had romantasy when this was published, it would have won then too. And like, I understand if we put Flame and Shadow into fantasy, then the dude bros would get mad, okay? Because it's not really fantasy. It's like, it's different. It's very much the bridge between fantasy and romantasy, but this is so boring. There is so many better romantasy stories out there, and I don't know, like, I've read so many romantasy books this year. That is going to be probably my #1 genre of 2024, if not very close. Obviously in the top 2 or 3. Like, it'll be the fantasy, romantasy, and romance, like, just kind of all intermixed together. I understand what Sarah J. Maas did for the foundation of romantasy, and I talked about this earlier, but it doesn't need to be the bar that we set today. And like, this is 800 pages. It did not need to be 800 pages. This is 800 pages of a nothing burger. Because like, can I tell you what happened in this book? Not really. Not really. And I am struggling, and I'm scared of what Flame and Shadow is going to be. When Flame and Shadow, is that the third one? Yeah, Flame and Shadow came out, I hadn't picked this one up, and I was like, well, I'm certainly not gonna read an 800-page book to then read another 800-page book. I was just like, okay, we're just gonna pretend like the series is done. And then all of the vlogs and the wrap-ups and things like that have started talking about how Flame and Shadow was not good, okay? How Flame and Shadow was not, it very much lacked what the first 2 books had. And so now everyone liked this book and they don't like Flame and Shadow. So what's gonna happen with Flame and Shadow? What is gonna happen? You know before I do, because the Goodreads vlog is coming out before this one is, because we're reading things way out of order, but that's fine, don't worry about it. But anyway, that's my thoughts on this book. 2.5 stars. But let's talk about 2022. That was the year that I got married to Derek. So our wedding was in May of 2022. And it was I had booktuber friends come to my wedding. That's how BookTube has changed my life. And I will forever be grateful for that. And I wouldn't have the community that I have now without BookTube, right? I'm actually working with my sister on a new creative project that's, not public right now, so I'm not gonna talk about it, but she has asked me to kind of help out with the community aspect of it, the Discord and the, social media aspect of it. And the reason why she asked me was because she's like, there's something so inherently community-based about BookTube that you understand and know, and so we need to like unlock that for other niches of the internet. And as I sat and thought about that, I was like, you know, she's right. There is something so special about BookTube, about the community aspect of BookTube, because reading on its own is so inherently private and personal and kind of isolating, right? You are just sitting there, what's the phrase, like you're sitting there looking at dead trees, hallucinating other worlds. And like, that's what reading is. It is very much a personal, private thing. You're not doing it with other people. Of course, this is gonna be like the busiest time of day, and so you're gonna hear cars on the road because we live on a busy street. Anyways, so you take this very private, isolating activity that you do on your own, and we have made this community of thousands and thousands and thousands of people that all think not the same way about books, not the same, you know, they don't think, obviously, because like reading is subjective, but it's, you know, you can find those people that you absolutely love the same books about and you just want to completely obsess over and fangirl over. But you also have these really interesting debates and discussions about things that, like, when you don't like the same books. You have these internet book clubs that start happening online where, you know, one person really likes the book and they're talking about it, and then another person does not like the book, so they get to talk about it, and you have this really intelligent discussions and conversations, and it's so interesting how BookTube and you know, the bookternet in general has just created this community. And then people show up to my wedding that were, you know, and since then I've gotten to meet so many other creators and you know, other bookternet people, and yeah. Anyways, 2022 was also the year that I started my Patreon, so like that was another thing. Like, it was later on in the year, but it was something that was just so, like, we created another little community, another little like bubble that we get to all be in. And, you know, since then we have grown it and changed it, and it's, you know, evolved into so many other things. Anyway, I'm gonna get like all sappy and nostalgic and everything, but like I think 2022 was definitely the year that like I started really building community, and I cannot express enough gratitude for BookTube for that.
Hello, you're getting a phone clip because I'm still trying to figure out tripod situations in my car. It's not working yet. So I have this new tripod for my phone, but not for a camera. I started Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. I'm reading this out of order. So you're seeing this as the one of the last books that I'm reading, because I'm going to put these in yearly order. But I'm reading this out of order, but only because Libby let me skip the line. I have had Libby for like 3 years, and this is the first time I've had to skip the line loan. So that's exciting, but that's not one that you can like renew, right? And so I have to read it quickly. I meant to talk to you when it's like, you know, 100 pages in or whatever, but I accidentally read like 50% of this last night. It's a very quick read, but dear God, there's so much chess in this book. This book, I don't care. I don't like chess. As a game, I don't. And that's probably just on, you know, certain elements of trauma. My ex was very big into games, specifically chess, and he was the sorest of losers. And he would get very into things, like to the point where he would, you know, he was a very competitive person. And it was not a fun time. And then he was like trying to teach me how to play chess, but not well, you know. So, you know how like super competitive people are just not great teachers, because they're like, well, why don't you know this? Anyways, that's neither here nor there. So like personally, I don't like chess. I don't like playing chess. It's not a fun thing for me. And this book has so much chess in it. So much. I don't need to know this much chess. It's very repetitive. This book is so repetitive. It also took up to like 30% before I realized, oh, this is actually a romance book. It doesn't feel like that. It feels less romance and more just like about her. And the other redundant thing that was kind of driving me nuts is that we're continuing to talk about like why she doesn't want to play chess anymore, and it has to do with her dad. And
it took way too long to figure out why. I didn't know, was he dead? Is he just like, you know, did they get divorced? Is it like just this teenage like thing where she just doesn't like, and I still to this point, like she finally was like, we were estranged before he died, so it was both. And I don't know why though. Like she hasn't said why. And I hope that we get that answer, because I feel like that really shaped who she is at this point, and so it's not something we can just gloss over. I don't know, I'm just not loving this. And I don't know if I don't think it's because it's a YA book. I don't think it's because it's you know, like they are younger characters and I'm not relating to them. It's just like, it's so redundant. The book is so repetitive. For a not long book, not long, that's not a word. For a book that is not that long, it's so repetitive. And there's so many, like, we're going to these tournaments and like they will talk about each tournament and each match within each tournament. I don't care. I want to know the interpersonal relationships in between the matches. And we are, because we are sacrificing time with the match, we are also like, we're losing something. This is a perfectly fine book, and I see why people are enjoying it, but it's not for me. However, we are just getting like little hints of the queer representation. They've talked about how he is a virgin, but he hasn't said why. And I think this is the one that does have demisexual representation in it, and that would make sense. And then also she is bisexual. And it was kind of funny because her sister was like, she sleeps with girls and boys, and she said I could tell anybody. And it's like such a little sibling thing, right? Such a, you know, trying to be important, trying to have this little secret. But yeah, anyways, that's my thoughts. I've been rambling for 5 minutes. I probably will not talk to you until it's over, because I'm gonna try to get it done today.
All right, well, that was a disappointment. Man, we are not winning. We are not winning. I finished Check and Mate. I'm giving it 2 stars. I did not like this book. I don't understand. Maybe it's just because like I truly do not care about chess at all in the slightest. But I also just think that the relationship was weird. Like, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. There were a lot of things that were left unexplained because the author felt like it just wasn't important, but I think it probably was. And it's just like, honestly, it's boring. I've forgotten about it. I've read 2 books since then, and I have forgotten about this book. So forgettable, so mid. And I think I just had high expectations for it because I had like high hopes that it would be good. A lot of people have said that this is her best book, and maybe like, okay, listen, if you like chess, you're gonna like this book. But my God, you have to really like chess. And you also have to know chess. Because I feel like she didn't explain chess to anyone who doesn't know it. I know chess, I just hate it. Literally hate the game. If you like it, you like it, great, love that for you. Is it worse than The Love? No, it's not worse than The Love Hypothesis. So it would be my 3rd worst Allie Hazelwood. We are going to move to 2024, and we're going to pick a book from our current winners. To be honest, the 2024's Goodreads Choice Awards was a little bit disappointing. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit like sad and just meh. But before we do that, let's talk about 2023, because while the book wasn't good, the year was pretty great. I think 2023 was the year that I started finding the vision for my channel. I think I started finding like exactly what I wanted out of my channel. I started taking it more seriously. I had taken it seriously in the past. I think like once you get monetized, you kind of start wanting to take it seriously a little bit. But this was the year that I think I started just like finding a direction, finding what I wanted in the channel, and potentially starting to think of it more like a business. Amazing Readathon was born in 2023, so that was a big, huge jump to my channel. I feel like I probably started like the general trajectory of my channel after, or like right around Amazing Readathon into 2024. So it's kind of hard like not to separate out the first half of the year and the second half of the year. But like as a whole, I think the channel did really well in 2023. I started finding out more about what I liked. I started getting involved with more bigger collaborations. I started working with Cassidy on Spiffbo, and I started finding what I truly loved in fantasy, which is fantastic. Like I had read fantasy prior prior to 2023, but I think 2023 was the year that I like finally declared myself a fantasy reader. 2023 was the year that I read all of the fantasy Goodreads Choice Awards. So that was cool. So it was a good year, I think, for the channel, and it was a good year for me personally. I got married in 2022, and so then 2023 was like my first year of being married, I guess. You know, whatever. It sounds really weird, but it's like we've been together since 2018, so it doesn't feel any different. But you know, legally, I guess taxes were a little bit harder. Anyways, that being said, yeah, 2023 was a good year, but 2024 was definitely fantastic. It was the best year on my channel for sure. So with that, let's move into the final vlog for this.
I meant to talk to you last night. We are at the final book for this project, and it's the one that I didn't talk about in my intro because it was the 2024 pick and we didn't have that when I made the intro. And the original book that I had for this was The Ministry of Time. This was the sci-fi winner because this is a book that I own physically, and I was like, my 2025 goal is to read the books that I own, and you know, I was trying to work smart, right? But this vlog has not gone well. I have not had a win with this. Like, honestly, my best book was 3 stars, and I'm not happy about that. And I feel like it's been boring because I haven't really had a ton to talk about with each book. I haven't had any wins. Which is just like, I don't know what that says. I feel like I'm going into like an existential crisis because I'm like, I've been on BookTube for 7 years and I've had books that I loved over those 7 years. And now I'm, you know, reading the best books of each year. And I know, like, Goodreads is a whole popularity contest and it's a, you know, it's a whole thing. But you would think that the general bookternet would agree on what a good book is. I guess not. Either that or I just have a very different opinion about things. I don't know. We'll see. I decided to switch gears because I have heard nothing but good things about this book, and I absolutely love her as a person, as an actor, and as a character. So I decided to go with a memoir, and I'm going to be reading The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop. This is the actor that plays Emily Gilmore, obviously, the third Gilmore Girl. And I grew up with that show. I adored that show. I binge that show every year. Actually, I really didn't do that this year, did I? Interesting. It's probably the first year in a while that I haven't at least watched some of it. And I really loved Lauren Graham's memoir a few years ago when she talked about the Gilmore Girls, and so I was like, I'm gonna try this, okay? Because The Ministry of Time probably will be a good book. I'm gonna keep it on my shelf. However, there were some reviews from friends and people that I have very similar taste to that gave it 3 stars, and I was like, I can't do another 3-star book. I just can't. Here's the thing, and I've talked about this with some friends. I just haven't really like mentioned it online, I guess. I love a 5-star book, right? 4 to 5 stars. I can talk about those, okay? I can talk about 2 stars. I can definitely talk about 1 star. Like even a 2-star book, I can talk about, right? I can't talk about 3-star books. They are books that existed. And it's just like, there's nothing to say. Because a lot of times it's a 3-star book because I don't have any feelings about it. Either that or it's a disappointment. Which in that case, I have, you know, something to say about it. But with The Ministry of Time, I don't have any expectations, so I can't be disappointed. So it's probably going to end up being like a book that exists. Who knows? It might surprise me, but I can't run the risk with this video. We're going to go with The Third Gilmore Girl. And I started reading it last night and I love it. Oh my gosh. Kelly Bishop narrates it, which like, it just brings this air of superiority, of confidence. I love her. Oh my gosh. I love her. I don't know how far in I am. I got it on Audible. It was on sale. And so I wanted to just like, I knew I wanted to listen to it because of, you know, the fact that she narrates it. It's so good. It's so good. Oh my gosh. I think I'm about like 60% of the way through it. Obviously on Audible, I have no idea because Audible doesn't do percentages. But we've just gotten to the part where she was given the pilot script to Gilmore Girls. And she has such a fascinating history. I did not know that she was a dancer, like a professional dancer. So interesting. She has such an interesting life. And I texted my friends in the group chat because I think a couple of them either had read it or wanted to read it. And I was like, I think that Kelly Bishop is like the real life Evelyn Hugo, because a lot of the way that she was portraying this story was very much like Evelyn Hugo. And like, you know, the way that she just the way that she formatted the book and her structure of it and how she got into Hollywood and like started out on stage and then went into Hollywood. And it just felt so like, it felt like I was reading Evelyn Hugo again, obviously, except she's a real person, which I think also goes to the fact where like when you read Evelyn Hugo you think that's a memoir. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. So anyways, I will definitely be finishing it at work today. I think I only have like less than 2 hours left of the audiobook. It's very short. It's only like, I think it was 6 hours on one-time speed. So anyways, we'll definitely be finishing it today. And yeah, I'm obsessed. And I'm so glad that we're gonna at least end this video with a win.
That may have been the easiest 5-star read that I've ever had. And that's exciting. I do love this whole idea of reading based on vibes this year. I am having much more fun with it. I don't have to think about it so hard, so critically. But yeah, 5 stars. The second part of the book, or the last part of the book, really focused on the time at Gilmore Girls and that pilot, and really connecting with Lauren Graham and Alexis Bledel, who were the other, Gilmore Girls, and really connecting and having that lifelong friendship beyond the cast. There was something she had talked about during her time on Dirty Dancing, because she had actually been cast originally as a much smaller person, a much smaller role, and she was only going to be there for 5 days. But one thing that she really wanted out of her career, out of her acting, was the ability to create these lifelong friendships and these relationships beyond the time that the show ends. And so then when she was asked to be this bigger part on Dirty Dancing, where she would get to stay there the entire time and she would get to be able to, film and be a bigger part of this cast, she jumped at the opportunity, even though it was like less pay, but for a much bigger role, or like same amount of pay, much bigger role, that kind of thing. But it was because she wanted that connection. And so then when she came onto Gilmore Girls, that was like her lifelong achievement. That was the that was the pinnacle of her success, was being able to create those relationships and those friendships. And then she kind of continued on and talked about a year in the life. And okay, listen, Emily Gilmore is Team Logan, so therefore that's the correct answer. I rest my case. Sorry, everybody. I'm a very passionate Team Logan fan. Personally, if we're actually going to think about this in a logical sense, none of the guys that were in Rory's life were good for her long term. I think that every single one of them, with the exception of Dean because he's terrible, but like Jess was good for her in the moment, in the time of her life that she was in, and then Logan was good for her in the time of life that she was in. But I absolutely love Logan as a character. Listen, I have a soft spot for him, and also the actor. That's the only reason I watched The Resident, was because he was in it, and nothing else. Like, that was the reason I got into that show. That's a complete tangent, but Emily Gilmore, Kelly Bishop, said she was Team Logan. That's the right answer then. Okay? End of story. Anyway, 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. I am so glad that I at least ended this vlog with a win, because nothing else was. But like I've done with all of the other years, I just want to quickly recap 2024, because obviously we just did that, okay? The thing with having a January BookTube birthday is we literally just talked about the end of the year. But 2024 was definitely the biggest year on my channel. It was definitely like the biggest achievement on my channel. I hit 5K. That was like my stretch goal, was 5K. And we ended at 5.3. So that's cool. But beyond that, I definitely exceeded all of my other expectations in terms of like the Amazing Readathon being 3 times as large as it was the first year, which is just fantastic. I had some videos just really pop off, and also I just had a lot more fun with my content. And I think that that's going to really
push me into 2025 and year 8 on BookTube. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not planning on quitting. I am not planning on doing anything like that. If anything, I'm actually going to go harder. I want this to become more than a hobby. I want this to become a passion project and potentially a source of income, like an actual source of income beyond like just a hobby, like, you know, side hustle thing. But anyways, we've talked about 2024 a lot, so I'm not going to go into any more depth. But I'm happy that you guys have been coming along with me. If you were like one of my first 100 subscribers, or if you joined last week or today even, I am so blessed to have every single one of you watching my videos, commenting on them, liking them, you know, being in the live streams, whatever. 2025 is going to be an amazing year. Year 8 is going to be an amazing year. Thank you guys. Thank you, everybody. I'm really bad at being sappy. So if you want to see what some of my goals are for 2025, I'm gonna link that video right here. If you're new here and you haven't yet subscribed, there's a little button that you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, and my Patreon are linked in the description below. Thank you all for watching, and thank you for being here for 7 years. Here's to a wonderful year 8 and 2025.